welcome to Daily Debrief brought to you by People's Dispatch. I'm Shriya and today we talk about a fresh thaw in ties between Turkey and Israel, political chaos in Pakistan, and it is 2 years since George Floyd's brutal murder in the United States. Has the country's police system tried to get better since then? The foreign ministers of Turkey and Israel met for the first time officially in 15 years on Wednesday. There's talk about improving ties in a variety of civil and economic fields. Both sides said they are keen on energy security specifically. But Palestine still holds center stage in the apparent thaw. Turkey was among the first Muslim nations to recognize Israel but officially backs the two-state solution. Oddly, the Turkish foreign minister said during his visit to Ramallah that tensions were lower during Ramadan this year. Similar noises came from Israeli top ministers. Let's hear what else Abdul from People's Dispatch can tell us about this development. So, Abdul, in recent times, there have been new diplomatic moves by Turkey, like engaging with Saudi Arabia. And so, what's Turkey really trying to do here? And is the engagement with Israel a part of this? What do you think is the motive of Erdogan?
Well, as you rightly pointed out, Turkey has taken steps which basically to revive relations which were kind of dead for last few years, primarily because of the Erdogan's policies, which were very, you can say, the attempts to create regional hegemony for Turkey. These policies failed. There is an economic problem in Turkey now. The economy is going into different kinds of issues. For example, inflation is more than 61%. Then the Turkish lira has lost its value, more than half of its value. Turkey being one of the strongest economies earlier, this particular shift in the economic problems created there has kind of created a mass, you can say, the popularity of Erdogan, who has been ruling there for more than a decade now, has gone down, and it looks like there is no other way but to kind of revive the international relations, the relations this Turkey had earlier, so that it can kind of invite more investment, can have better trade relations, and can also look forward to finding newer ways of mutual economic benefits. So primarily, it is an attempt by Erdogan to kind of economically revive Turkey. But apart from that, there are other reasons as well. Erdogan thinks that by disengaging with Israel may not be fruitful, and engaging with it will be more beneficial for both its own constituency in domestic constituency and for the larger issues of Palestine. So I think it is a part of the larger strategic move by Erdogan. Yeah.
Also, Abdul, what has been Turkey's role in the whole Palestine issue? How do you see this turning out? What is it going to mean for the Palestinians?
Well, Turkey is basically one of those countries who recognized Israel in 1949 during the time of its formation. So it was in the region. It was the first country to do so. And it has remained in good relations with Israel for a very longer period of time. Only after Erdogan came to power in early 2000, then the relations started deteriorating for various reasons. One of the main reasons was Erdogan's and AKP's ideological inclination towards Muslim Brotherhood, towards Hamas and other groups. So because of its radical views on Palestinian issues, because of its radical stance on that, the relationship started deteriorating. Particularly after 2008 Gaza attack, Israeli attack, in which more than 1,400 Palestinians were killed, which went on for almost 2-3 weeks. And then after that, the attack on Mavi Marmara, one of the flotillas which basically were trying to breach the Israeli embargo on Gaza to provide humanitarian aid, in which around 10 Turkish activists were killed. These two incidents led to kind of deterioration of relationship further, which after this Mavi Marmara incident, Turkey recalled its ambassador for the first time from Israel. Following that, there was, of course, there is a thought, basically there is a kind of no movement on the peace talks between Israel and Palestine, which also added into this kind of strengthening, Turkey's strong reluctance to kind of normalize relationship with Israel. Also, following that, we have seen a series of incidents which culminated in 2018 when a Trump administration recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, which led to mass protests in Palestine. Israel, of course, fired on those protesters, killing more than 60 of them. This basically created a situation where Turkey again recalled its ambassadors, which was, you can say, a turning point. So all these things, if we see it in the long way, it looks like the close relationship between Turkey and Israel has not worked for Palestinians. The breaking up of relationship with Israel has also not worked for Palestinians. This time also, when Turkey's foreign minister was visiting Ramallah, meeting the authorities of Palestinian government, he did talk about, reiterated about Turkey's support for two-state policy, sanctity for Al-Aqsa and all. But I think all of these will remain a kind of verbal commitment. It will not change much, nothing much on the ground. So I think this revival of relationship will have very less impact on Israel-Palestine relationship.
There was violence on the streets of Pakistan's capital on Thursday. Former Prime Minister Imran Khan's supporters were pushed back as they tried to enter Islamabad. As police fired tear gas on people and Khan's supporters retaliated, there was chaos. Khan's government fell in April after a no-confidence vote. The fall of his government was also attributed to the military withdrawing support to him. He vowed since then to mobilize supporters and the public to demand an election. Right now, the country is being run by rival political formation PMLN, headed by Shehbaz Sharif. Pakistan has seen plenty of turmoil late: the COVID pandemic, massive corruption charges against top leaders across political outfits, and a resistance from Islamist groups. We'll return to Abdul for more details on this. So welcome back, Abdul. In Pakistan, Imran Khan was recently defeated in the parliament, but he seems eager to keep fighting. Can you brief us about the political situation there?
Ever since he was removed from the prime minister's post by the no confidence vote in the parliament, he has been holding popular rallies all across Pakistan. Given the fact that after he is removed from the power, particularly in the context in which he was removed, he thinks that he can claim to be a kind of a martyr at this moment, and his popularity is growing in Pakistan. So it seems that he is using the momentum created by the no confidence vote, the context in which the no confidence vote took place, and to basically to kind of create a larger popular base all across Pakistan. So his rallies are quite successful also, at least visibly. There are a good amount of people turning up for these rallies. And in that context, there was a rally proposed in Islamabad on Wednesday as well, which basically the government of Shehbaz Sharif kind of added into the, I will say, if you ask me, it basically added into the popularity of Imran Khan by trying to prevent people from gathering in the capital, which led to a militant kind of demonstration all across the roads leading towards the capital, and which basically created, of course, some amount of violence. So it seems that Imran Khan thinks that if he keeps the momentum of popular mobilization for next few months, he will be in a position to kind of take back power in the next election, whenever it is happening. And therefore, he wants to keep up the pressure. And that's why when Shahbaz Sharif government did not allow his rally to go on, he still defied the orders, the government orders, and held the rallies and asked the government, basically giving an ultimatum of 6 days to basically to decide the date of fresh elections. So I think this is all part of his larger strategy of keep on mobilizing the streets, keeping his support base active on the ground, and keeping the government on defensive, primarily because the kind of economic issues which were quoted as one of the reasons for his removal from the power, now because he is not in power, nobody can establish his accountability. So by popular mobilization, he thinks that he will be able to divert his own role into the problems of in Pakistan economy. So I think that is by and large gist of what Imran Khan is trying to do at this moment in Pakistan.
So Abdul, what is the way out for Pakistan from here now? Is the election really getting delayed, or is the present government overreacting, as some are saying?
If you ask me, I will say this is a kind of overreaction because it was quite expected. As I said before, PTI and Imran Khan think that the removal, the way they were removed from the power, the circumstances will help them in kind of mobilizing their support base, increasing their popularity. If you keep on creating such hurdles, if you keep on repeating the way you are repeating the Shahbaz Sharif government, the image of Imran Khan, of being a martyr, will become stronger and stronger. So, of course, if you think from the Shahbaz Khan's point of view, it is quite obvious that they are on defensive, primarily because the way Pakistan economy is performing now, the forest reserve is going down, the inflation is high, the employment rate is low, and all those things basically is a burden on them, and they are not able to negotiate with the IMF also. That the deal which was about to happen yesterday did not happen because IMF was reluctant to go ahead with it. Even if that deal happens, that will basically add to the lack of popularity of the present government, primarily because the IMF is asking them to cut the subsidies on petrol and other things. It means the inflation will further rise. So the people will blame the current government rather than Imran Khan for the economic mess which is happening. So that is basically the reason that Shahbaz Sharif government is basically trying to put a kind of image that they are not against elections. The elections will happen, but when will it happen? They are not very sure about. They're saying, some of them are saying that this will happen only when the term of the current parliament gets over in 2023. But some of them are saying it can happen earlier also. If it happens earlier, they know that they are going to, the Imran Khan's party is going to gain majorly in the elections if it happens early. But if it is delayed, they will be, the chances of them being blamed and them losing their own support base is much more higher. So it's a very difficult situation for the current government at this moment. And that is why, because of their inability to decide the course out of this particular situation, that is why the way they are reacting.
George Floyd's brutal killing by a policeman triggered the Black Lives Matter movement in the summer of 2020. The movement echoed in other countries too. Floyd's killer, Derek Chauvin, was sentenced to 22.5 years in jail. But killings by police officers are up compared with 2020, and killings of black people are also higher. 2 years ago, it was virtually impossible for victims of brutality to sue police officers. After Americans hit the streets, an executive order tried to change this. But the Joe Biden administration is watering down even this proposal. People are wondering, has anything changed at all? We talked to Natalia from People's Dispatch about these issues. So, Natalia, 2 years down the line, have there been any structural changes in US policing?
So broadly, the answer is no. The movement for Black Lives and the uprisings in 2020 generated 3 powerful slogans from the streets, one of them being jail killer cops, so throw the police that have been killing people in jail, another being end police brutality in general, and one of the most radical being defund the police because police budgets in the US are very overfunded. In general, the police brutality did not necessarily reduce from 2020 to 2021. Actually, police killed more people in 2021 than 2020. Killer cops are not necessarily going to jail in larger numbers than before, although the most high-profile cases are generating convictions for these killer cops. And police budgets are not really defunded broadly in the US. So in general, no, things have not really structurally changed.
All right. And Natalia, what do you think after 2 years, what in your opinion is the legacy of the Black Lives Matter movement?
I mean, there were some victories. Police budgets have only gone up like since the 1970s in the United States. And from 2020 to now, they've largely stayed the same. So that is a change. But also, I think the bigger change is the change in mass consciousness in the United States around the question of racism and white supremacy. Conversations around race before this movement were largely around individuals. Individuals have bias, individual police officers are bad. But now, after this movement, the conversation has shifted and people are talking more about structural racism. So, racism being embedded into the structure of policing in the United States from its history as, slave patrols in the US. And, largely moving away from, individual cops are racist to the system of policing in the United States is racist as a system.
Thank you, Natalia, for that update. And that is all we have for today. Please come back to us for more stories and for more news and views from around the world. Read peoplesdispatch.org, and for more updates, follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram.